Ahoy my hatchlings, I'm Splashes, and this is a new series. So what we're going to be doing in this series is, well, we have these giant squares laid out because we are going to be building ourselves some organics, and I'm going to try and do this each week or so. And we have a bunch of tools. We've got World Edit, we've got Archeon, and we've got Voxel Sniper on this system. So let's just go ahead and spin the wheel. So we got the Sandpiper, which is one of my favorite birds. The first step is to lay down the legs. This is actually really important, because this defines the size and scale of the build more than anything else. And so it's really important to get this right, and it was actually really nerve-wracking setting down these first few blocks. I laid the legs down by hand because they're too narrow for the tool, and they are meant to be straight. Once I've defined the legs and hips, I move on to shaping the body. This took a couple of tries, and then go ahead and add in the head and the beak. After this, I take my gunpowder tool from Voxel Sniper and fill in the bird, and then use the arrow to smooth the bird down to really get that nice shape. This actually took a lot less time than I expected, and the shape progressed very, very nicely. After quickly forming the bird shape, I spent a while hand smoothing to really get that shape proper, because the brushes aren't able to fully get everything nice and smooth. Once I finished the shape, I copied it to the other side, since the body itself is, of course, a symmetrical build. I also saved the legs for later, and I don't entirely know why I did that. Once the shape was done, I moved on to coloring the bird. This was actually the hardest and most time-consuming part. First, I started coloring the tail feathers and the wings. I started with this really dark brown terracotta, but I found it really difficult to find colors which really worked for this build. Sandpipers have these very muted but generally light colors, and it's really hard to replicate that in Minecraft. Sandpipers also have this defined white edge around their feathers, which made coloring a fair bit more time-consuming, as I had to do it basically with my hand to make all the little feather shapes. Also, Sandpipers have this mixed appearance in their colors, in which they have this brown and white tangled together very tightly, and it's very hard to replicate that at the scale in Minecraft, but in the end, I do think we did pretty well. The birds themselves are white underneath, so we mostly filled that in with snow, with a bit of white concrete for shading, though if I'm honest, with the shader pack, it's hard to even tell that we did that. Lastly, we colored in the eye and the beak, and added in some very small details just to finish it. And with the coloring done, we once again copied the bird and flipped it to the other side to make it symmetrical. The only part of the bird left to do at this point is, of course, the feet. I tried using the brushes at first, but quickly realized it was not possible to do this at the scale, and went back to hand shaping the feet. The first leg is planted solidly, and I spent time making sure to form each individual toe, as well as the webbing between the toes. And the toes aren't perfectly straight, because sandpaper feet are quite flexible. The second leg is lifted up, like the bird is going to be taking a step. This pose, in general, is quite static, but this does add just a little bit of interest and motion to the build. I made sure to pay attention to how each toe drapes down, so that each toe can be seen. Lastly, I went ahead and colored in the feet. Now I want to put this bird where he actually belongs, on a nice beach. It was surprisingly difficult to make a realistic beach that looked nice. The sand texture is just too light and yellow. Wet sand is much darker. I tried a few combinations of darker sand, including the various rocks and sand like when I was little, but eventually settled on a lighter combination using oak woods. Lastly, I added some water and a bit of foam the bird is standing in. I added some little details around the bird's feet to give the water just a bit of motion. And I love the white stained glass in these shaders. It makes just a beautiful thin layer of water, and it looks so nice. But that is our very first organic, our little sandpiper, and I love how this build turned out. For my first organic, I am really, really happy with this, and I can't wait to see what this place looks like as we fill it up with more and more organics. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully next week.